Welcome to Climate Action News One-on-One, brought to you by We Don't Have Time and A Sustainable Tomorrow. My name is Katarina Rolfsdotter Jansson, and I'm the host of this program.
Nasreen Al-Amin is the founder and executive director of Search Africa, a community-based organization that helps people understand the threats posed by the climate crisis and devising coping strategies to reduce its impact.
So hello there, Nasreen. Great to have you with us. You run an organization that is very much people-centered. How is your work affected by the pandemic?
Hello, Katrina. Thank you very much for bringing me in. And so I would say that we're not very much affected, to be honest, although we're at people-centered, that we move in a very fast lane time. Everything evolves. So if you really want to keep going, then you need to learn how to adapt as quickly as possible. So once we realize that we're in a situation where we can't go out to the communities to serve, to do what we are normally designed to do, we then designed new programs that align with the time. And the ones that we moved everything online, so to say. And those programs that we couldn't move online, we just suspended them for the time being. For instance, we have a campaign about how to use art to portray the way climate change is affecting Nigeria. We wanted to do an exhibition, but once we realized that an exhibition is not possible within this year, we decided to go for a virtual exhibition. So, and in doing so, we realized that this might be more fun, more innovative, because it's not very well out here. It's not very popular to have a virtual art exhibition. So currently, we're in the process of having the first virtual art exhibition in West Africa. So that's one. And well, in terms of our programs, we initiated this webinar series called the Business Unusual. So Business Unusuals are just a discussion about pre-existing socioeconomic issues affecting Africa. So we just look at them and have comprehensive discussion about how these socioeconomic issues like poverty, hunger, social injustice, economic inequality, how all these things could possibly be complicated or aggravated by the pandemic. So we designed these discussions in a way that they address this issue. And we also have the speakers propose solutions on how to propose to it. But often these solutions we kind of make because, for us, we feel like the pandemic and the climate crisis are sort of symptom of a larger economic crisis. So whatever discussion we're having, we kind of initiate it in a sort of sustainable, efficient manner that addresses them as one, not as separate issues, so that whatever framework governments or stakeholders would propose have a sort of continuity, in the sense that post-pandemic, we don't have to say, oh, thank God, the pandemic is over, we have to drop this and then start something new. No, let's build a framework where there is a continuity of this action, whereby post-pandemic, we can just go on with building resilience without having to feel like we need to stop doing this and begin something entirely new.
So in your organization, you work with environment, education, and human capitalization. How long have you been running and doing this work with Search Africa?
We've been doing this for near 3 years now. Actually, May 25th is our 3rd anniversary. And just to be clear, our environmental program is not climate related, because in my region, Northern Nigeria, we have the highest rate of out of school children, with about 13.2 million kids out of school. So we initiated the project to address that issue. So what we do is provide school sponsorship for young children that can't afford to go to school. So the education program is not it's not climate related or environmental related.
So it's basically you're addressing the multi-layer threats that you have to your society, which is connected to education, of course, and also gender equality. So where do you get your funds from in your work, and how is that affected by the pandemic?
Currently, we don't really have any strong funding stream. Most of the funds that we use are usually crowdfunded or like in-house donation. So we haven't ever gotten funding from any external entity. So most of our projects are largely run independently. So I don't we're not affected by the pandemic. But our project that I told you about, the program that we do, Business Unusual, we're actually addressing the issues of fund and philanthropic investment, looking at how aid, or funding programs would be affected by the pandemic, considering every country is struggling to provide for its country. So how is availability of funding in Africa going to be affected by that?
You just launched a project called Surge X Media, and that you launched yesterday on May 14th, because we're recording this. So tell me about the project.
Okay, so Surge X Media is designed to bridge the gap between community impact and climate news. So what we're trying to address is the lack of climate data in climate processes in Africa and the low climate discourse in Africa. And along the way, we identified that most of the times there are people, just freelance photographers and normal people that go to community and source lots of contents that are newsworthy, but they don't really have access to media in order to put out that news content. And in some instances, there are media houses that would love to put out that content, but they might not necessarily have the funding to commission for those kind of reports. So what we're trying to do is initiate strategic partnership and communications whereby, content creators can submit to media houses and it gets published. That way it reaches a wider audience. So the focus is mostly on climate data and climate news and the technicality of climate data, because we don't really have much widespread of that. But we're also looking at storytelling, because the climate narrative in Africa is largely overshadowed by Western narrative, because people are more focused on their media than our own local media. So we're trying to see how we can create a platform where people can be very expressive, where people can speak their minds, where people can get their stories out there so that it doesn't get manipulated by external entities. So we have a couple of initiatives within a Surge X Media project, and the first one is the submission process that I told you about. We have a page where people can go wherever you are. You don't have to be an expert. As far as you have good content, you submit to us and we publish it for you. We also have a journalism training program where we train. Anybody is free to join in. So the idea is to strengthen skills of the people that want to write content but might not have the skills to. So it's also in a way trying to get quality content for our platform. So if you join the training, then you might be able to submit a more qualitative content for us. We also have The Untold. It's a visual documentary series. So essentially what we're trying to do with this is acquire visual data of how climate change is affecting local communities and how those local communities are responding to these challenges. And because we do have a very huge gap in climate data in Africa, we know that Africa is being affected and we know that it's going to be affected the most, but sometimes it's just very hard to pinpoint where the data is or where it's coming from, especially locally sourced data. So our focus is to be able to amplify that, especially from locally sourced data, with locally sourced data from young people or media content development persons in Africa. We also have this campaign, it's called Hear Me Now. So we're not getting into that now, probably next year, but the essence of the campaign is to provide visibility to climate activists in Africa. And because I realized that, because I work with lots of people across different countries in Africa, there are lots of young people doing amazing work in the climate space, and they don't really get the visibility, maybe because they don't have media access or because the media that mainstream this climate activists are not really interested in this kind of people. So most of the time you see that the only climate activists showcased in global platforms or global forums are those that participate or support popular climate initiatives. And most of the times when you really look at this so-called climate activists, you don't really have any solid working ground. And the problem with this is that one day these people might end up being in a position of power without really having the capacity, to to lead. And that's where the problem comes in. You have people, they say, oh yeah, it's she or he's an African, but there is no capacity. So what we're trying to do is build a platform where you have people that work in the climate space from different sectors, not just climate activists. You have campaigners, you have people that work in policy, you have people that work with agriculture. So just having to bring people from different sphere of the climate activism to say that.
So Nasreen, sorry to interrupt, but I'm just curious, how is your work received by the conventional media, by television stations, etc., all over your continent? How is it received, and what would you say the general awareness is about climate change in your continent?
I think the general awareness, I would say, is not very good. It's a bit poor, in my opinion, because most of the times you would find out that the people that are aware of the climate crisis are usually people that are within the environmental, climate sphere. That's, when you go from that, you barely find well-educated people that know what's happening or that support these movements. But in terms of media or commercial media, except if you're paying for that news content to be out there are media platforms that carry it, but it just isn't well out as it's supposed to be.
So your work is important to raise the awareness and also to involve the local communities. For viewers watching this and thinking, this is really interesting, what advice could you give to people that want to unlock more human potential in acting on climate change? What is your best advice to get people involved, especially youth?
Yeah, I think you really need to have a clear vision of why you're doing this, and what you want to achieve. That's one. When you have that, then you need to have understanding of what you're doing and the people you're doing it with, because people are different. They come from different cultures, different backgrounds. So you need to know how to respect that. You need to employ compassion. There needs to be acceptance. And I think love is very important. People don't really talk about this, but in order to have all this, you also need to have love for yourself, for others, for nature, for the world in general. So once you have this, then you have that solidarity with people, then people would welcome you. Whoever you're approaching would welcome you and would accept your ideas.
People will be feeling comfortable in.
Yeah.
So Nasreen, what is your greatest fear and your greatest hope when it comes to climate action in your continent? I mean, it's a huge part of the world, Africa, but from your perspective, you work all over Africa. What is your greatest fear and your greatest hope for climate action?
So my greatest hope, I think we are already seeing a surge in the amount of participation from youth and youth organizations. So I really hope that we can be able to rally more young people and more, governance response to this, so that we can be able to build the resilience, the climate resilience that we need to transcend from the stage we are now to a more, just livable planet. So that is my hope. My greatest fear, to be honest, because I have lots of fears, but one of my greatest fear is that, I often hear about just transition and the like. So my greatest fear is that just transition really isn't truly just transition, right? So we transition from this, from fossil fuel, and then we transcend into clean energy. But how sustainable is this energy? People say it's more sustainable, yes, but renewables aren't made out of thin air. They're made from natural resources. Let's take solar panels, for instance. They're made from sand. So I just fear that there might come a time where people think sand is worthless now, right? So it's not really a threat. But what if it becomes so as precious as oil, because people need so much energy, there's so much energy consumption. So I fear that, these things that we're fighting for might turn out to be as what we left behind, and then we have lots of social injustice, lots of marginalization, because we didn't really structure our movement in the way that address this issue right from time. So I just worry about sustainability of clean energy itself, how would that affect people, especially people from low-income countries like mine? Because there is lots of economic inequality between our countries and first world countries, and I don't think that gap can be filled. And I just worry about the balance and how multinationals and would leverage that upon us and turn it into another not oil war, but what should I call it? Renewables war. Just as we.
Well, this is something that has to be kept a strict eye on, of course. And this was also very much one of the hottest topics on the latest COP, to make this transition just and to in the developing countries that they will be able to stay. There will be an equal transition and just transition. So Nasreen, when it comes to climate leadership, what does climate leadership mean to you? I always give my guests this question, and do you have any good examples?
Well, I have really thought about that, but I think climate leadership to me would be to be able to carry everyone along, because that is very important. We are in such an unequal world, and we see that every year. So being able to keep everyone's perspective, and being able to align with everyone's right, I think that's very important in terms of what kind of leadership you're in. So I think that is very important. And another thing is, and just as I have questioned the just transition, I think even though we're advocating for something good, I think we should be able to question, these things. We should be able to take criticism. We should be able to look back and look inwards and see, yes, this is great. We're doing this for the greater good, but what are the effects? What are the impacts? What are the long-term impacts? So I think once you have that, I think you can be considered, somewhat a good leader or good climate leadership.
So what you is the importance of transparency, of engaging many people in this work, so it doesn't become a top-down process, that people are really...
Yes. Yeah, and also acceptance and respect of other people, because there are lots of people involved in this. You can't just not be one-sided with it.
Well, this is what you're doing in your organization. It's very impressive what you do, and I'd like to thank you very much for your work and also for joining us on Climate Action One-on-One. And best of luck, Nasreen Al-Amin, with Search Africa and on the new endeavor with the Search X Media. It sounds like a great project. And for all of you viewers following us on this program, we'll be back next week. And meanwhile, you can log into the We Don't Have Time platform or the app and make sure you make your voice heard when it comes to climate action. And if you're based in Scandinavia, you can join A Sustainable Tomorrow in the work that we're doing. And thank you very much for joining us, and take care. Bye-bye.
Coming up next week, Bertrand Piccard is the initiator and visionary behind Solar Impulse, the first airplane that flew around the globe powered by the sun. In 2021, he will deliver 1,000 sustainable solutions he selected to decision makers, encouraging them to adopt more ambitious environmental targets and energy policies.